Meeting this evening. This is a reminder to meeting attendees that this is a formal meeting, and I advise members and members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during the public open session, but not at other times. Meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And as always, can I ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking? So first item then on the agenda, apologies for absence, I have Councillor Knight and Councillor Jones. I think everyone else is here. So the next item is declarations of interest. So are there any declarations of interest in relation to any items on the agenda, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary? No. Okay, excellent. So item 3, Town Mayor's announcements. I've not got anything this time, so we'll move on to the next one. So first, item 4 is public open session. So adjourn to a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions, etc. Any members wish to speak? No. Any members of the public online wishing to speak? No. Okay, so we've got no invited speaker. Then on item 5, item 6 is members' questions. So any members' questions, please? My goodness. Okay, I'm going to go with Councillor Thomas first, and we're going to go around the table. Councillor Thomas.
I have a question for the clerk about the bicycles we used to have in Town Square, the ornamental ones. I know we found them in behind the Bowls Club. I just wondered what was happening with them and where are they now?
Yeah.
Just to confirm that the items in question are being collected by 3 members of the Public Realm team this week, and they will be deposited in the new depot. Thank you.
Councillor Woodhead, thank you.
Thank you. Well, the first thing is more of a sort of observation, and then the second bit's a question. First bit is I just want to say thank you for officers for helping to organise a Tritax cemetery visit we had. I think it was last week. Both visiting the Noartum site and the new Noartum site, and also the existing co-op distribution centre. Absolutely fascinating visit. You can look at my Facebook profile and see some of the pictures. But it was nice to get a group of cross-party group of town councillors to go and see what I think is part of the new Biggleswade and part of jobs and infrastructure and so on in the town. So very interesting, and just want to say thank you for that. And I think it's, for those colleagues who weren't there, it was a very enlightening visit, and I hope one that we can build on the relationship with Tritax going forward. The second part is a question. I've noticed the past few days there's been a lot of activity around the Red Lion on London Road, number 1 London Road. Obviously, as a council, we have opposed the previous applications to change of use. It looks very much to me, and I have photographic evidence of it, so I'm happy to share with the clerk or wherever, that the preparation is being made for a different sort of development, not a licensed premises that it's currently meant to be. So I'm hoping this can be escalated to central beds for planning enforcement, because it looks very much to me like they're planning on doing what they want, regardless of what the planning permission or not lack of planning permission they already have. So I'm hoping we put this on the record to try and get it through to enforcement, because I think it needs looking at.
So it's a clarification then, you're asking the clerk to write to planning enforcement? Yes,
that's right, to update them with that information that they need to take this forward, because we have evidence of activity that potentially breaches planning regulations.
Happy with that? Okay. Excellent, thank you. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we've got a report from the Biggleswade Joint Committee. Is it correct that there are only going to be 4 central beds ward councillors on the Joint Committee, not for all 5 of them? Because that seems rather strange to my mind. If there were 5 of them, then of course there should be 5 Biggleswade Town Councillors. But I think it's more, why is 1 Biggleswade Town Ward Councillor being excluded from that Joint Committee?
Councillor Russell is the Deputy Chair of that committee. Councillor Russell, please answer the question.
The answer is that Central Beds Committee that looked at this decided to keep to 4. So there'll be 4 town councillors and 4 ward councillors. I wasn't at the discussion, and maybe at some point one of our ward councillors can give me a bit more detail.
Okay, happy with that. Thank you very much. Any other members' questions? No. Okay, so I'm going to move then on to minutes and recommendations of meetings. So we're on page 7. This is the Town Council meeting held on the 8th of August. So page 7 to start with for accuracy first, please. 7, page 8 for accuracy. Page 9 for accuracy. Page 10. Page 11. And page 12. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next minutes. So with that in mind, I will sign those off in due course. Okay, thank you very much. Next item then is the minutes, and these are the draft minutes of the Public Land and Open Spaces Committee. Now, as you're probably aware, usually what we do is the committee will agree the minutes. So we have these in draft format. I think what we should be doing here is noting the minutes. But if there are any specific actions that or anything that members particularly want to bring to our attention, but these minutes are really for noting, subject to then the committee agreeing the minutes when at its next meeting. Go ahead.
Could I just clarify that in each of these cases, the minutes have been signed off by the relevant chair?
So with that in mind, is there anything particularly in any of the minutes that you wish to, that are an issue or you wish to make comments on at this stage, or can it wait for the Public Land and Open Spaces Committee, the next one?
Move they be noted.
Noted. Thank you very much. Any happy with that? Everybody happy? Yep. So next one is the Town Centre Management Committee. Same thing applies. Happy to note unless there's any issues. Okay, thank you. Biggleswade Joint Committee, again, any issues, anything you want to raise? So we're noting those as well. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to then go back to the minutes of the Town Council, which is back on page 7. So we're now on matters arising, item 8. So matters arising from the Town Council meeting of the 8th of August, page 7. Anything? No. Page 8, page 9, page 10. Yep. Councillor Alba.
Yeah, I was going to raise was it 9D? We resolved to write to CBC officers about the bus gate. I realise we've got an email today from Mr. Lord sort of explaining what it is. I just wondered if this will be coming back to the council at some point for comment.
I think it's a good, perfectly good question. I think we didn't get a reply back in time to bring it onto this agenda, so quite happy to bring it to the next council meeting. So if we put that as an action for the next meeting, so that we're able to record it publicly. Thank you for that, Councillor Albert. Then item, so page 11 and page 12. Okay. Thank you very much. And then say any of the other items, so the other agendas will leave it to the relevant committees. So with that in mind, we will then move on to item 9, items for consideration. So, and this, the first item here is, if I can find the right page, is, thank you very much, page 31, for anybody who can't find it quickly enough. We have the meeting structure report. Now, I'm going to ask Peter to do an introduction on this, or Karim, so an introduction. I think just, and then I'll say a few words depending on what Peter says, and then we'll then open it up.
Can do the initial introduction if that's okay.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So first of all, I'll talk for about a minute and a half, if I may, as I've practiced this bit already earlier in terms of notes. I'd like to sincerely thank members for all your received feedback, in particular also the Mayor and Deputy Mayor for input into the formulation of the report before you tonight. The report does make some key recommendations, which are certainly up for discussion and vote. I should stress that the main drivers for the proposal are to realise the significant benefits, which are set out as unlocking meeting time and meetings process, which are non-cashable savings, to improve the operational delivery by several teams. It would also, the proposal would release some cashable savings on officer overtime. The functional lead clerking recommendation in the report would help to upskill a range of officers and broaden the overall workforce capacity, rather. The community engagement group recommendation set out in the report is for the CEG, which is not part of our formal governance architecture, to move into the Biggleswade Joint Committee via co-option to improve its voice essentially at a strategic level. I just raised the point that the town clerk's ability to call an extraordinary town council meeting or committee meeting indeed would provide extra meeting time for planning applications and any other important topics in cases where the proposed meeting schedule would miss those. Officers at this stage do not envisage the need for an extraordinary meeting to be called, although were there to be a need based on administration team data, this would be envisaged to be no more than once or twice per annum, which still would be significantly below the proposed 2 meetings per calendar month current tempo. Overall, I think the proposal would assist officers and members in delivering the corporate aspirations objectives in a clearer way for the town and council. The proposal, I've got to stress again, is not about putting anything concrete in place at all. It is more about trialling a new meeting schedule and structure and a way of working indeed to deliver operationally effectively. We could always certainly, and members could always certainly consider this a pilot scheme and to go back to the current system. I'll pause there.
Peter, do you want to say anything else? Okay, so I'm going to say a few words. Essentially, you've got a report in front of you. So if you have the original version, you'll have seen that there was a change to that which came out by SharePoint, and then you also have some additional information. So what I'd like to suggest to members, you have some sort of contextual information here. You have some history. You've got the additional history, but I think fundamentally what we are looking at here is how we move forward. So the report gives some background. I think what we should be focusing on is not the content necessarily of the report, in my view, but the process that we're going through. So yeah, we have the fact that the proposal is to go to 1 council meeting per month, with an option for an extraordinary meeting should we need to do so, whether that's called by the clerk, the mayor or other members, depending on the situation. We have the situation where currently when we're looking at committee meetings, within the report, it does show that there are planned for 3 committee meetings for each committee. There may be scope for members to feel that that's maybe not the way to go and that you might want to consider other options. There is scope within the report to, I think Corinne's touched on the fact that the community engagement group, the proposal is that we don't continue that, but that we suggest that perhaps members of that group might wish to be co-opted, or their approach to be co-opted onto the Biggleswade Joint Committee. Now, it's a different format, but that may be something that could go forward. And I think there's some various options considered around working groups, etc. So, but the current rationale is in the report that we leave the current working group in the same format currently to see how that works. But what I just want to stress is that within the report, let's not focus too much in the report content, but the principles around it and what we're aiming for. Okay, so having said that, I'm going to open it up for members to comment, please. Who wants to go first? Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, just sort of an observation really in terms of going to meetings once a month. Just in the short time I've been on the council, there have been 2 situations where things have come up quite urgently, and we did have time in the current calendar to debate them. That's Barclays Bank and the closure of the railway station, and they were both time sensitive in us getting a response out. So, you know, would there be adequate mechanism to have a extraordinary meeting called in time if we needed to, and how would members, you know, want to go about that?
So in my view, there would be adequate time to do so. I think what we should, I'm speaking from the chair, I think probably what we should be doing is considering that we have a meeting schedule that is, if we were to go along this route, one meeting a month, but keep the other meeting available. But there's no reason why we can't arrange an extraordinary meeting on a different day of the week, as long as we give enough notice. As long as residents are given enough notice, we could do that. So I don't think there is an issue there if there is something that's timely. And I think the same thing applies if there's something, depending on the length of the meeting, if we are unable to conclude our business by the timescale that we've agreed, if we were to go ahead on this option, that there are also options there to go on to an additional meeting should we decide to do that. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you. Firstly, my comment on the starting time of 6:30, that's, I think, too early and unfair on people who work for a living. It doesn't give them necessarily a chance to finish work, refresh themselves to come to the meeting. So I think I shall be against that. But I think possibly more importantly is the planning situation. And the Central Beds Council, I believe, have a set period for dealing with planning applications. And to ask Central Beds for an extension, which seems to be would happen virtually every month on several occasions, I think is actually wrong in principle. I don't think that's fair on Central Beds Council, and it's not fair on the public who expect to get decisions in a reasonable timescale. Going back historically, and with the reasons for changes over the years for number of meetings has often been because of the planning cycle and making sure that planning matters could be dealt with in an appropriate timescale. An option might be to have every third Tuesday as a full council meeting rather than add an extra meeting or so in the year, but that would possibly cover that point. So there may be other options available. I think that I'd like to hear more other members' views on it, but I do have particular concern over, rather as Councillor Skilton was saying, about the due speediness of actually decision making and dealing with issues, and particularly with planning. And I don't think it's right to alter the planning process. The local authority, Central Beds as a planning authority, has time limits to stick to, and they will get castigated if they don't comply. And if we don't meet within a regular time and give a reply and keep asking for extensions, I think that's wrong.
Before we go into someone else, can one of the officers respond to that? So what feedback have you had from Central Beds in relation to that?
So thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Strawn. And specifically, I mean, as a principle, I completely see where you're coming from in terms of, planning, and should always be kind of consistent, and there should be more bites at the cherry essentially to be able to get to comply with the deadlines. I mean, what I can say is I've got it here essentially, but in the last since the new council we formed in May of this year, we've had no requests for extensions. We've had to make no requests for the extension deadlines yet. And since last November, there have been 2 requests for extension on planning that we could actually pull from our records from since then. Okay. Yes, I take your point.
Can I clarify, Sean? That's okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So I don't think it's so much about what we've been doing in the past. It's about the impact if members were to agree a different way of working in the future. It's not for me to determine the policy of the council. However, I think should members decide to support this recommendation, then I don't believe it's such a significant issue to be asking for extensions if and where necessary. I don't have the stats to easily to hand, but I did ask my colleague to try and get a sense of what's the most common practice across the whole of the county. We are quite a sizable authority. We are technically a super council in that sense. But my perception is, having been a member at another council, is that it's not uncommon for councils to meet on a once a month perspective. However, this council has a massive volume of work and it's ever increasing. So we should bear that into consideration.
So in answer to the question, we're not sure what Central Beds' position on a regular extension. So I think we should find out, and we should be very clear whether this is acceptable before we can actually go ahead and make a clarification. If Central Beds say actually a regular extension of a planning application is not acceptable, we're stuck, I think. But I'll park it there for now. So, Councillor Albo.
Yeah, I was going to, underline what Councillor Storm was saying earlier. So on planning, we would be relying on the ability to get an extension. So it's not necessarily the case that would be granted. So that would leave us in a difficult position. So I'm very unsure about this, I can say. Starting times, 6:30, yeah, I mean, for me, that's not a problem, but like for working people, especially if they're working away and have to get back. And also people with young families, it's difficult to scramble to get everything arranged, bedtimes, bath times, etc. And I know it's only 30 minutes, but that would be important.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Barrett.
I just point out in regards to the sort of 18:30 start time, I think all the officers are actually at work during the day and then continue into the evening to be with us. So we should be cognizant of that thought as well, that we should put the extra effort in to be able to be available for the extra hours, I believe. Second thing is with the extraordinary meetings, I think we need to all be clear about what the core side of things is regards an extraordinary meeting in terms of numbers of people that would be required at that. So I think it's 5 in the standing orders at the moment. So I think it's important we understand that we don't all need to be there for that extraordinary meeting, depending on the topics. And I think the planning side of things is actually manageable, as has already been. So I'm at the moment relatively comfortable with most of the things that have been put in here.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Any other members? Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to comment really on the start time issue. I think 6:30 is too early. I think Councillor Albone's correct. I think if we want to attract perhaps younger members of the council, things like that, those are families, other commitments, I think we need to be aware of that. I take Councillor Barrett's point around, I'm aware the staff around all that time, but we're all volunteers, we're not paid to stay longer. So I'd rather actually be aware of my time as well as officers' time. So, and I think actually then going up to 9:30 with a 5-minute break and potentially not having had anything to eat before we come is not a really good recipe for decision making. And those of us were on the previous council will know we've had some pretty difficult decisions to make, rolling on till 9 o'clock in the evening. So I think we just need to be, and I'm not saying we're going to be in that position again, but you know, the recent history dictates there have been difficult decisions and problems. So at least starting at 7 gives you at least a chance to catch your breath if we are then going to go on to 9:30. So I think I would be very resistant to anything before 7 o'clock. Maybe slightly selfish, but I'd like to think I'm also speaking perhaps for other people who may not be here as well. So, but yeah, I mean, 9:30 in a sense is okay, but it's the 7 o'clock start is preferable.
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I'm okay with most of these changes. I think, as Councillor Woodhead said, 6:30 is a bit early, but as long as he's okay to stay till 10, that's fine. But I think we should just try it for a short period and see how it goes. Not necessarily the 6:30 thing, because that seemed like a contentious thing.
Okay.
Although I could easily make it, so it's not for me to say.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Agnew. Thank you. I have a moment there. Councillor Agnew.
I agree with previous statements. I think everything needs to be tried, and perhaps we have the opportunity to do so. But I also wanted to ask whether anyone can comment a little bit about capital assets working group. Why such a drastic change? I probably don't have a context.
Yeah. The capital asset working group does look significant, and it is a temporary feature. So what we're doing is we're working extremely hard, obviously, with member attendees to address a large number of issues connected to our capital assets. And that's why there's a more frequent meeting timetable, but I expect that to reduce over the medium term.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Skilton again, and then Councillor Russell.
Yeah, just, I mean, depending on if we do adopt this or not, for me, there's nothing in there very compelling, but it would be interesting to know if there'd be consultation with officers, if there would be, you know, a marked improvement to their work-life balance, because obviously working late evenings, this is unsociable hours for a paid job, especially for a council. And so I just think that should be considered in whichever decision we take. And if that would be, you know, for me, that actually might be compelling evidence if it meant that our officers were getting a better work-life balance and more productive and efficient in their working day.
Thank you. I think it is quite clear when you look through the comments appendix A, that quite clearly it does reflect some officer comments and member comments. I think part of the reason that this has been proposed is partly that, it's partly to do with the workload. I'm going to use the word churn, but essentially we're a bit of a meeting factory. It's one meeting, then another meeting, and another meeting, which is fine if we've got the work. But the amount of time and effort that goes into preparing the agendas and us coming here for a 45-minute meeting perhaps isn't necessarily a way to go. And I appreciate the fact that some of our meetings have been longer meetings and some have been shorter. So I'm just using that as an example. So I think were we to go along this route, we need to be mindful of the fact that we don't want to be rushing decisions just to get to the end, to finish a meeting at 9:30, for example. So. And I would be very clear that if we did decide to go along that route, if we need to pull another meeting for that reason, or we can an item on the agenda can be pushed back to another agenda, that's for us to decide. So I have to say, I mean, from the chair, I've got mixed views on it. Having sort of seen what we've done previously, we've had planning committees, we've had 2 meetings, we trialled 1 meeting and we reverted back to 2. But there's also the argument, quite rightly, around an officer attendance and the fact we have these meetings. We've got regular committee meetings. The meeting schedule is quite clear here. So I think we've got an obligation to consider this, and this is why we're here. So I'm minded to sort of see what other views are. So anyone else? So Councillor Russell.
Well, my first comment is in answer to Councillor Skilton and say, yes, officer work-life balance, but also councillor work-life balance. And I even say that as somebody who's retired but has other commitments. I would appreciate if we could take these decisions separately. I think the number of council meetings should be taken separately. The number of committee meetings and the timings of the meetings should be taken as separate decisions. I won't be very happy if we take it en bloc. And the report shows 3. It says that the committee meetings will be quarterly, but it says 3. Well, I'm not happy that there should be 3. It should say 4. They should be quarterly meetings. Otherwise, if we're going to have less council meetings and we're going to have less committee meetings, how on earth are we going to get through the business of the council? And I note that the F&GP committee, it says 5. Well, 5 shouldn't be necessary for F&GP if the meetings are scheduled correctly. The key ones for F&GP are the November meeting to look at the first draft of the budget. And then there should be an F&G meeting in January, earlier in January, before we set the precept at usually on the 4th Tuesday of that month, which is another thing to consider. And there just needs to be an F&G meeting in time to recommend a draft budget to that precept meeting. So for me, all of the committee meetings should be quarterly, not 3 or 5. So I'm saying that I think we should take these decisions separately rather than en bloc.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. Peter, do you want to speak?
If I could just clarify something from the report, actually. Where it says quarterly, and it is misleading, I have to say, this is a statement of current practice. It's not making a recommendation. So at the moment, the PLOS committee, at the moment, it doesn't mean it can't do something different in the future. PLOS and TCM meet 3 times. F&GP currently meet 5 times. Personnel currently have the opportunity of meeting 4 times. So if you were to make any changes to those, that would be changing the existing practice you've already agreed.
Can I just, I'm going to clarify this. So that may well have been the case within the last council year, but historically, all of these committees, I think there may have been one exception. All of the committees were for. And I know the clerk does have the data behind that because I've been into the data. So I accept the fact that last year we did 3 and 3. That doesn't mean that it is a historical practice in my view. So I think we need to be mindful of that. Okay, so anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I think Councillor Russell's right. We should take it each one individually. Some people are affected by some of the changing practices more than others. I think that's only fair. For my part, there's a couple that don't affect me at all, so I'll just go vote on those.
Okay, so I think we probably need to start. Did you want to say anything before we conclude, Peter? Right, fine, thank you. Right, so what I'm looking for then is proposal, first off, in relation to the number of council meetings per month. So we'll do the first one. So this is not exactly in line with the recommendations, but if I can have a proposal in relation to the number of meetings per month, please. Okay, well, I'll make the proposal from the chair then. So the proposal is that we change from 2 meetings per month to 1. My proposal is that rather than it being the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and purely because of timings around Christmas time, I'm not sure that that's the right thing to do. So, and that would mean changing other schedules as well. My proposal would be that we change, so we stick to the 2nd Tuesday of the month. But before we do that, would there be any issue with doing that as far as the officers are concerned? What I'd like to clarify why it is that we propose the 3rd Tuesday.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think the initial thoughts were that would capture more of the planning application loads coming in. Having said that, though, I mean, that can still be done once we catch it the next time around, if you like.
So I'm not sure whether that's the case. So from my point of view, I think what we should be doing, so the proposal is that we change to a single monthly meeting for a trial period of 6 months, commencing once the meeting schedule is agreed. It's the 2nd Tuesday of the month rather than the 1st Tuesday of the month, but that does give us the option for extraordinary meetings should we need to do so. That's the proposal. Go on.
There's some clarity around start and end times. Do you want to do that?
We're doing that separately. Councillor Thomas.
I'd like to second that.
So seconded. All those in favour of that?
Forgive me, can we now speak as we've had a proposal?
You can,
because
go ahead.
We'll raise the issue about the planning applications previously, and we were going to check with Central Beds Council. This is premature in that respect because you haven't sought the advice of the Central Beds Council.
Except that is the case. So pending then a decision from Central Beds, maybe put an amendment and then pending an agreeable decision from Central Beds. And I'm very conscious that Councillor Whittaker actually did note that she wanted to speak, and I have not intentionally ignored you, Councillor Whittaker. So halfway through a proposal here, but Councillor Whittaker, would you like to speak? Are members happy for me to suspend standing orders to allow Councillor Whittaker to speak? Go ahead.
I just wanted to make members aware, not just about where you are now, but where Biggleswade sees itself going. So if you look at what I would say comparable towns to Biggleswade now, so Flitwick, Ampthill, in terms of size, they meet monthly, and it is monthly. For Dunstable, which I would say is probably where Biggleswade is going in terms of size, they actually meet every 2 months, but they have a separate planning committee. So it might be worth going away and finding out what other councils do and how they're doing it and how they're interacting with Central Beds with regards to planning. Because if they're doing it monthly and they're managing it, it may be worth just having those conversations.
Thank you. Reinstating standing orders. So subject then to an acceptance from Central Beds that is agreeable, and depending on other arrangements that are made elsewhere in other councils, the proposal is as laid out. All those in favour, please. So has that been seconded? Sorry, it's Colin seconded it. You happy to second it? So any other comments now before we get myself tied up in knots here? Councillor Skilton.
So if this does go through, have we got the opportunity to change this back? If it goes wrong?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is just a trial. Okay.
The proposal is for a trial basis. If we deem that it's not working, we absolutely can change it back.
Okay. So all of these blocks that we're going to vote are all on a trial basis.
Yep. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, the obvious marker is that if we keep having extraordinary meetings and we end up having 2 meetings a month, it's not working. So it's as simple as that. We can review it after 6 months and go, yeah, it's not working. Or we could probably say after 2 or 3 months, it's definitely not working, or it is working. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Quick question or comment?
Go ahead,
Should we
yeah.
try to probably change the trial period to smaller, shorter period? Given there is a lot of doubt that is like 2 or 3 months or something.
That's a proposal as an amendment to my proposal. My personal view is that I don't think that would be the right thing to do. I think we need to have a long enough trial to see. And then if we feel that then there is a need for regular extraordinary meetings, then quite clearly. So, but I'm happy to take a vote on that if it's an amendment you wish to propose, Councillor Agnew. No. So, any other comments before we go to the vote? Okay. All those in favour, please. Against? And then any abstentions, please. So that is carried on 1 meeting per month. So the office will take away and come up with a meeting schedule. And we did say, and we would continue to do it on the 2nd Tuesday of the month. So the next item then is the timing of meetings. Bearing in mind, I've got myself tied up in knots on the first proposal. Someone else propose the timings, please.
Well, I think in terms of a proposal, we would want to, I think there was a consensus that 7 o'clock was better than 6:30. So I'll stick my neck out and say from 7 to 9:30, but with an option of continuing a bit longer if need to be.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor North and Councillor Albo. Any comments on that proposal before anyone wish to speak? So no comments. So we are saying proposal starting at 7 to 9:30. You proposed then an option to extend if we felt that there was a need to. And this is the proposal from Councillor Woodhead. So it's been seconded. Any other comments, Councillor? So Councillor Skilton, then Councillor Strong.
I think we should not have the option to go past 9:30 if we want to make the trial, more effective in terms of what the impact will be.
Okay, so that you may have to propose an amendment to that if Councillor Woodhead is not happy, but we'll see in a second. Councillor Strong.
There may be issues with regard to standing orders in some of these issues because I believe that there are some rules within standing orders. I'm afraid I haven't brought my copy today on this particular point, which limits the times of meetings, which would give the meeting the power to extend the meeting if required, or to call it a halt. I'm not sure what the exact standing orders are, so forgive me for not having come properly prepared on that. But I think I'm fully supportive of the 7 o'clock start. I think that probably standing orders cover the ending.
Thank you. So, Councillor Gilcher.
Sorry, I think just based on Councillor Skilton's, I think we should have a hard stop at 9:30 in fairness of the long day for the council and the councillors. And I think then the agenda just needs to be prioritised. So if we've got some urgent stuff, let's get that done out of the way first. That might be timely, and then we can leave stuff maybe not so important near the end. And if we are drifting near the end, we can carry it over potentially.
Okay, so Councillor Woodhead's proposal is a 7 o'clock start with a 9:30 finish and possible extension. Councillor Woodhead, are you happy to amend that to have no extension, or do you require someone else to propose an amendment?
No, I'm happy for it to end at 9:30, and I think if we take on board, I don't think this needs an amendment, it's just an observation. Councillor Gwilshire's point about maybe agenda management or whatever. I just know historically we've had perhaps some of the exempt stuff that's been a bit tricky later in historical terms. So it's just about thinking maybe we need to, if we think there is a lot on the agenda, we just maybe need to think about the order of it. But 9:30 is good for me.
Okay, so did you want to say something else? Go ahead, Councillor Gill.
Sorry, yeah, just on reflection on Councillor Strawn's comment about it being covered by standing orders, that would probably be a better option. Then on the night we could decide whether it was sufficiently serious to need to extend past 9:30, if that is possible.
Go ahead, Councillor Strawn.
Perhaps the town clerk could comment on standing orders, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Strawn's right to say, I mean, if members were to vote for the motion that's on the table, we would have to vary standing orders to allow it a later finish.
Which if we decide to do, we can.
Yes.
So on that basis, Councillor Strawn.
Point of order, if we're discussing amending standing orders, we can't discuss this further because it has, as I understand the correct technical rules. I think that we could probably go with the suggestion of continue with the 7 o'clock start. Standing orders, I think, can comply with that, and we can agree to extend the time if we need to beyond 9 o'clock, if that's the cut-off period, because we often go beyond without possibly doing it technically correctly. So I think that the answer is that standing orders provide for us to finish at 9, if I'm correct, which means that if we run on, if I continue talking, we may have to suspend standing orders this evening.
Thank you for your helpful interventions, Councillor Strawn. So we have a proposal. I think we have a seconder. All those in favour then, please. Okay. Any those against? Councillor Barrett. Any abstentions? Okay, so that vote is carried for 7 o'clock start. Thank you very much. And then the third item then relates to committee meetings. So I'm going to look for a proposal in relation to committee meetings, please. Councillor Russell.
Proposal is that all committees should have 4 meetings a year scheduled, and that the scheduling should be cognizant of the budget setting for F&GP.
A seconder? There's a number of people seconding. Councillor Strawn, you wish to comment?
Yes, the chairman of committees do, of course, have the power to call extra meetings if necessary. That's just an observation.
Absolutely. So it's a proposal for 4 committee meetings per council year. We've got seconders. Comments from members, please. Do you wish to comment? Seems not. So I'm taking from that the members are not unhappy with the proposal. So I will then take it to the vote. All those in favour, please. It doesn't look as though that looks like that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. So the next recommendation is that it relates to obviously the meeting agenda schedule, which is going to bring back to a future council meeting on the back of what we've spoken about. We've talked about recommendation 3 relation to the functional lead officers being trained and clerking meetings. Do we need to have that as a proposal for meetings? I think that's an operational matter. It's not something that needs to be decided on here. We've got the note about the working group daytime configuration. I don't think there's any proposal or anything needed on that. What I would say is in relation to the community engagement group, again, does council feel that there needs to be a proposal in relation to that? Councillor Russell?
I think there probably should be. It was a decision of the joint committee that that would be the best way forward. We can now have up to 15 non-voting members of the joint committee. So we could have up to 15 people, which would more than cover the community engagement group and may even cover at some point the community safety group, which might mean that we don't need quite so many other meetings in the diary. So I think I would propose that the community engagement group falls into abeyance straight away, and that as per the joint committee's decision, the chairman and vice chairman, i.e. Councillor Tranter and I, work with the clerk and the current community engagement group to see who might want to become a co-opted member of the joint committee.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Seconder? And I have a seconder, Councillor North, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Strong.
Thank you. As I've been a councillor who's been attending the community engagement group, attendance has, I'm afraid, been disappointing on occasions. And I think that this is probably the way forward. I just hope that those members of the community who've attended are given the opportunity to comment on this, because there have been a number who've attended regularly and others who've flitted in and out. So it seems to make sense to have a more formal setting with the joint committee to give them the options. But we did set up the community engagement group specifically to enable communities members to actually engage. So I just hope that those who've been invited in the past and have attended in the past are given the courtesy of at least commenting.
I think Councillor Russell has said that the chair and vice chair of the committee will be in contact with them. It's a different format, of course, but the meetings, the joint committee meetings, are going to be held in the evening, which may fall in line with the community engagement group as well. So I think it's from the chair, it's a reasonable option, and that's what's proposed. So I'm going to. I had a seconder. So any other comments on this one before we move to the vote? No. So in that case, all those in favour of that proposal, please. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Well done, everybody. Right. Okay. So we will move then on to the next item on the agenda, which is the. Before we discuss this, this is the Grasmere Road network. Well, from the chair, I think. My view is that perhaps in light of other information, this item should be discussed in the exempt session. So my proposal is that this is dealt with in the exempt session. Do I have a second of that proposal? Could I have a vote on that, please? All those in favour of that? Okay, thank you very much. So anybody, no one against that? No. No. Okay, so I'm going to move straight on then to the football pitches report. Mr. Hosseini, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report in the agenda pack is based essentially on a reasonably long series of emails between the public realm manager, who's not here this evening, and football clubs who have approached him in the past and quite recently as July. Some correspondence has been or was received by officers, and I've got to convey my apologies to members that we should have shared that correspondence, which should have been attached to the report with you previously. I'll thus take the action, obviously, for tomorrow morning to send that out to all members as well, so that will be some kind of evidential statement in terms of anticipated demand levels for football pitches going forward. The report in its entirety essentially is based upon anticipated demand levels expressed by football clubs for the new coming season, which is hard to tabulate at this stage. Officers have considered the Stratton Way ground to be much better placed than the Eagle Farm Road area, which was the one originally suggested by football clubs for conversion from one large pitch down to two smaller training pitches for youth teams, essentially, which is where the demand levels are really coming from, based on correspondence that we've received and discussions between the public realm manager and the football teams. The original demand, the reason why officers have decided to go away from Eagle Farm Road essentially is down to two factors. Number one is primarily the limited size of the ground, and without the greatest possible scope for conversion of a large pitch to a full-size pitch down to 2 training-size pitches, but also its potential vicinity to local housing and neighbours there as well. At the moment, I've got to say at best, the figure of £400 essentially is based on through work that I've done with officers have done with our finance colleague lead on this, working out at circa it's an indicative figure only of £400 per additional team based on anticipated demand playing per season for a smaller pitch which has been created. Essentially, the recommendation also touches on the fact that we're about to do the line painting for the whole area, again for Stratton Way, and we need a decision, essentially a steer from yourselves in terms of which way to go. Thank you.
Okay, members, Councillor North.
This to me sounds like a very good idea, and I would propose that it should be accepted by the council.
Okay, seconded. Anyone second? Any comments then, members? Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Strawn and then Councillor Woodhead.
Yes, I've got no objection to the principle. Providing extra pitches is essential. The question I've got is, what are the bookings like for the full-size pitches for this season? Will this impact on? Will there be a team, therefore, that will not have a home ground, which they may already have decided on for the current season? The football season has started, so. What will the impact be on people who've already booked, if any? I don't know. What's the situation with bookings? Have we got football teams who've booked for the season, or what's the situation there?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Swan's absolutely right. I mean, I think there's a relatively healthy status of full-size team bookings. That's based on a short discussion I've had with the person who leads on the football bookings for the new season. Indeed, that's why we've been actually assessing this kind of situation. But this is kind of demand-driven, if you like, from the pitches. Where other I'm speculating now because, like I say, it's all indicative at the moment in terms of the future. But where other individual kind of teams to get together, if it's possible, they would miss out, certainly.
Councillor Strawn.
Thank you. I'll be a bit more specific. Has a football team booked the Stratton Way pitches for the current season?
Thanks. My understanding is that we have got bookings. I can't exactly list them because I haven't got them in front of me, Councillor Strawn, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Woodhead.
No, I just want to say I think we should support this. I think anecdotally, I'm hearing a lot about additional youth teams, youth football teams, both males and females, within Biggleswade as well, growing. That demand, obviously, interest in football is growing from both genders. So it's I think something we need to support. Obviously, like Councillor Strawn, I've got a concern. We don't want to kind of displace perhaps adult teams or whatever, but at the same time, I think we do need to create that grassroots football capability as well, because I think it's important with the growing town that we've all been talking about. So I think we should do this, but be mindful of and aware of where perhaps other teams can play and have the space for them.
I'm very conscious Councillor Strawn wishes to speak. Any other members who wish to speak before Councillor Strawn? Sorry, Councillor North.
Well, I would just like to point out that there are football pitches on the King's Reach development that are currently totally unused because of foot dragging by the developers in handing over the facilities to be taken over by the council, and it really is, you know, waste of opportunities and facilities that this has not actually been done. And when and if that is ever achieved, then there will be quite an increase in capacity for football pitches to be provided by the council.
Thank you, Councillor North. Go ahead, Peter.
Can I rephrase Councillor Strawn's question so that we can have some clarity? I think the point at issue here is, if all the pitches are booked, how can we then change what's already in place to allow the pitches to be 7 aside? So that's the question we need an answer to. Does it allow for a variation to take place?
From the chair, I am going to make a decision on this one. I do not believe that we are in a position to actually do anything with this until we have an answer to that question, and I am not happy that we go ahead. So I am going to make the proposal that we do not take this forward until we have the information available to us. Thank you very much. Anyone else? So all those in favour of that, Councillor Skelton, before you go on.
Sorry, could we do this subject to there being no impact on an existing team?
I think it needs to come back to council to make a decision. I don't think we should be making a decision based on lack of information. So on that basis, that it will be adjourned to another meeting. All those in favour, Councillor Albo.
Point of order, I think there was a proposal on the table.
I was there. Oh my goodness! Right. Okay. I'm getting myself tied up again. So, what was the proposal? I've lost. Councillor Woodhead's proposal, wasn't it? Councillor North's proposal. Right. Councillor North. Are you happy to?
Well, I can. Yeah. I mean, if within the rules, I can withdraw that if you really wish. I mean, just think. I mean, you're worried that somebody's booked these pitches and that suddenly they're going to be told, well, sorry, you've booked them for the season, but you're not going to get it anymore anyway.
I'm not worried about it. I don't think we're in a position where we should be making a decision on the back of not having information one way or the other. So,
Right.
So you're quite right. You made a proposal. Thank you for pointing
Well,
that out.
I will withdraw that, Mr. Mayor, if that is your wish.
I think genuinely we should not be voting on this until we've got that information. So on that basis, if your proposal is withdrawn,
yes. Okay.
My proposal is as laid out. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. Right. I'm going to try not to make a habit of actually making proposals, and I will not be doing it in future meetings. Next item on the agenda is the Drove Road Chapel update. Members, please. Comments? And do you want to introduce either? No. So can I have your comments, please? Councillor Russell, then Councillor Alban.
On the basis of the report, I'm happy to propose that we accept the recommendations. I think that's the right way forward to look after the cemetery properly. And I think it's right that there should be some discretion for the project manager rather than everything coming back to council all the time.
Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I agree that we should move that way, but I've got some questions. In the paragraph under option 2, it says as part of the quote for subcontractor, they have stressed that no allowances have been made for pruning work required. Is there an opportunity for our public realm team to be involved here and do whatever pruning is necessary?
Yes, I'm sure that'd be fine. I'd need to liaise with the external project manager from a conservation point of view. But yeah. Additionally,
so if the project manager is given sort of discretion as recommended, up to £5,000, will there be any kind of reporting arrangements between from the project manager to BDC officers, just if a transfer is being considered or if it has actually taken place?
yeah, I've made it clear to the external project manager for this phase that I would expect to receive weekly updates on progress relating to each of the specification items agreed by council. Obviously, if those change in costs, I would look to report those back to council, yes.
Any other comments? Councillor Skelton?
Yeah, this is more of a question. Does this cover the entirety of the boundary wall, including the bit along Drove Road and the railings?
No, it doesn't. It's a specific section to the south of the strap to the chapel. I can send them out.
I know what you mean. I know that bit, but yeah, that's fine.
Any other comments? Councillor Strong.
I think it's essential that the project manager be allowed to manage, because we've employed him to do the job. Obviously, he's got to report back to us, but we can't expect him to come back to the council for every single item. He's the expert, and forgive me, members, if there's a member here who's an expert in this, I'll apologise, but I don't think we're the experts in telling what should be done and how it should be done.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strawn. Any other comments? So,
I think Councillor Russell's.
I was going to say that it hasn't been seconded yet. So
Okay,
before
so
I had noted that this time. I'm not saying anything. Right, okay. So Councillor Russell proposed the recommendation as laid out. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Albone. Okay. All those in favour, please. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Check we're on the right thing. So the next item then is the, if I'm mistaken, the car park repairs and potholes report. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Further to the capital asset working group meeting, Councillor Strawn had asked officers to go away and review which of the utility companies had last completed work at the White Hart car park. As it's quite likely that it was poor pothole repair work that has resulted in the quite significant deterioration of that large pothole right next to the motorcycle parking bays. There are two utility companies that are known to have cables, pipes, etc. that trail underneath the White Hart car park, but officers have contacted both of them and they cannot see any work having taken place recently enough. And officers have also contacted a third utility company that may have cables underneath, and they have declined to share any sort of historical information. There are another 14 companies that, according to the website that officers use, could have infrastructure underneath the car park, but it would need officers to individually approach each one to ascertain whether they conducted the work. And this update was shared with Councillor Strawn this afternoon. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, members, thank you. I was in members. Comment.
As you've been thrown under the bus on this particular one. Having asked the question, I don't think it's good use of officers' time to go looking into the practice of who might otherwise be responsible. The work's got to be done. The question I've got from memory of the Capital Assets Working Group yesterday, which is a long time ago, for my memory fails me, but I think we were possibly looking at a cheaper quote than the one set out in the recommendation, which would save a considerable sum of money to the council. I hope I'm correct in my recollection there.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Go ahead.
Apologies, Councillor Strawn. I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus.
Too late.
And that was actually in reference to the report around line marking that we were talking about. Yeah, so the recommendation is as set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay. So, do we have a proposal? Councillor North?
I propose we accept the recommendations as stated in the report.
Okay, any other members wish to speak before we go to the vote? Okay, all those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Well done, everybody. Okay. Trying to make sure we're in the right place. So we are, the next item then is the planning applications. So item 10A, planning application for 12 Gilbert Avenues, loft conversion with rear dormer and roof and front roof lights. Comments, please. Happy with that? Okay. 10B, 16 Tate Drive, proposed retrospective single-storey rear extension and sunroom. Comments, please. I'm going to ask people to vote on this. So all those in favour of that, please. Thank you. 10C, 5 Kingsfield Road, Alteration to shop front to include a new collection point for medication. Councillor Albone.
I move no objection. I mean, the queues for Jardines are pretty massive, and if this helps to alleviate that, it can only be a good thing.
Okay, to have a second of that proposal. And that's a fairly huge number. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Then the land to north of Lindsell's Crossing. This is discharge of condition 7 against planning permission, etc., etc. And this is in relation to the. I think this is the art. Is that right? So, members' comments, please. Councillor Russell.
I'm closely monitoring these conditions on Lindsell's, as members will remember. Yes, it is the artwork. I would say no objection to this. It's very simple what they're going to do. It's 2 poles with like lollipop tops with round the outside saying Lindsell's, Biggleswade, Green Wheel, and the picture in the middle is a steam train. It says in the paperwork that the steam from the steam train is meant to represent lace work as a nod to the lace working that used to be, Bedfordshire lace used to be quite prominent. And there's also a nod, it says, to Dan Albon, although I couldn't quite see it on the lollipop, but apparently the axles that Dan Albon produced for his tractor were also sold to Great Northern Rail for their trains. So quite interesting. So I'm proposing no objection to this discharge of condition.
Seconded. Okay. All those in favour of, so any other comments before we go? Anyone else wish to comment? No. So all those in favour of that then, please. Okay. No one against. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next one is the planning application outcomes report. Any comments, members? Anything you wish to raise in relation to this report? I see no hands and no one wishing to speak on this one. So
I was just going to say that it's great that something that we've objected to has actually been refused, because usually it's the opposite on those statements.
Well done. Thank you very much, Councillor. So just to clarify, we are noting this report. That's not a proposal, just to be clear. Item 12, accounts. So we obviously haven't got those this time. So item 13, items for information. So this is in relation to the big eats. Mr. Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the whole, officers' perception of the event is that it went quite well. Social media has been monitored and there's been a fairly positive response and not much negativity. Very fortunate with the weather, which I think played a big part in the turnout. The 2 largest learnings from the event were focused on deterring attendees from climbing over the War Memorial. This is something that myself, Councillor Woodhead and the Royal British Legion discussed in a recent meeting, and after consulting with the RBL have decided that we'll be placing fences at either entrance for future events. And this is despite efforts from the organisers to deter attendees from climbing over the War Memorial with temporary signage. Another piece of feedback received was around seating and that there wasn't enough of it. This is noted and it will be brought up with the organisers ahead of the next event on the 14th of September. Feedback, of course, is still very welcome from members of the public and, of course, councillors. Thank you.
So, members, did you want to say anything in relation to this? Councillor Skilton and Councillor North?
Yeah, just if we are going to put fences up, they should not just be like a Harris fence or something like that. Like it's got to look the part and not just something to block it off. And in passing, I had a conversation with Councillor Woodhead about possibly the opportunity of getting somebody from the British Legion or asking if they'd be available to have somebody stationed there as a bit of a behaviour change in the first couple to sort of talk to people and maybe get a bit more engagement about our War Memorial.
I think it's good idea, and I had the same thoughts around the fencing, so I didn't want to raise. But yeah, I think it's quite right. I mean, we've got plenty of fencing around in public realm, but I don't think that's appropriate. Okay, so Councillor North, then Councillor Agnew.
Yeah, well, on the same subject, I was going to suggest that we should have also on the fence a sign in big letters, "Do not enter the War Memorial area," or something like that, just to make it very clear that we don't want people in that grassed area.
I think I'm right in saying we do have signs. So it's almost when there is a big event, we almost need to go over the top with the messaging to ensure that it, and by putting a fence there, that would sort of reinforce the message, wouldn't it? I think I had Councillor Agnew and then
I
Councillor.
was going to propose, since we're advertising the events like that in media anyway, maybe we could educate the public a little bit and put a gentle, but very eloquently worded message where we just reminded there's a certain places of respect that should be respected. I don't see why it would be wrong.
I think that's from my point of view. I think that's a good idea, and we'll be communicating so let's add that to the comms strategy, the comms schedule. I think I'm going to go Councillor Thomas, then Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, I think the problem is exacerbated by the fact we didn't have enough tables. If we'd have put all of our tables out as well, maybe that would have been enough, but there was just nowhere near enough. We normally have at least 10 tables, and it was 5. There's a couple of barrels and things we could stand a drink on, but that was about it.
Okay.
So people were spreading around everywhere they could, and the grass became a picnic area. I spoke to a few people, and they said, "Oh, they weren't aware." And I said, "Well, the sign's above your head." So,
okay.
And it was mainly children running around, so and they just weren't aware. So
okay, so
you can't educate the children who are too young. So it's the parents you need to educate.
Lovely. Okay, so I'm good. Councillor Woodhead, then Councillor Barrett.
Thanks. Just on that, I'm sure we can find I was in the meeting with Mr. Lord where the British Legion backed our decision about trying to sort of fence it off in some way, and I'm sure we can try and do it in a tasteful or respectful way, because there are a number of war memorials around the UK that are very much fenced in. They have wrought iron railings, and we're very fortunate, and I think it's the right thing to have such an open memorial in town. I think that's absolutely the right thing, but it's clear on these odd public occasions and big events that has proven problematic, and people want to run riot or let the kids run riot. I'm wondering, on top of additional seating and tables, can you clarify whether we're going to close the road off as well? Because that may help, because I think sometimes people feel a little bit penned in the market square, especially if you've got young children, and actually having a little bit more space might cause people to spread out and again reduce the problems of, oh, there's some green space, I'll go and sit on it. Actually, I could go and sit on a bench, I could go and sit somewhere else. So.
Yeah, a road closure has been approved by CBC for the next event.
Brilliant. I think that should also go some way to hopefully to reducing that problem, but thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
It was just an additional observation when I was there that the bins were also overflowing. I think we need to have appropriate larger bins. I think the sort of pizza boxes and things like that were sort of being rammed everywhere, and it just caused a bit of a mess around lots of different areas.
Thank you. Councillor Alban and then Councillor Russell.
Yeah. Following on from Councillor Woodhead's point about the road closure, I think some of the problem to do with the war memorial was that all the stalls were bunched up in that area, and consequently there was a big mill of people around there. So I think that's had something to do with it. If the stalls if the road is closed, which would be a good thing, and the stalls are spread further away from the memorial, that I believe would help.
Okay. Yeah, we missed an opportunity. It could have been spread out further down towards where the other half of the square is, where all the benches are around. The memorial was central to everything. If we move it away from the memorial, that makes it a bit less of a moot point, I think.
Okay. Lovely. Well, so thank you for your comments on that. I think I noted those as well. All good feedback. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Barclays Bank vehicle parking. Anything you want to add? No. So thoughts, members, comments? Councillor Woodhead.
Just a quick one. member of my family is a member of has a Barclays account and was informed that the Barclays bankers will be in the library from the 3rd of October. So they obviously seem to know more than perhaps they're letting on, but it also tells us that the library is going to probably be open by the 3rd of October as well. So I'm guessing that does really put a timescale on in terms of this, in terms of if it's from whenever it was, 18th of August. Yeah, so that probably would only be up to the 3rd of August, but that's more for information rather than a question.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Strong.
Thank you. Just an observation. Barclays has closed. Very little signage to actually indicate that it has closed, apart from you can't go in there. And very little sign that they're actually going to have the van on the Market Square. I believe the resources there are going to be limited. I think it's going to be limited printing, but yes, I have understood that they are opening in the library on the timescale suggested. However, I believe we did have an offer from a director of Barclays to attend the council. Perhaps that we could have an update as to where that invitation is, and hopefully we can have them attending and explaining the situation, and perhaps we can then make observations, and members of the public can make observations on the pros and cons of what has occurred.
I'll give you an update on that in due course, Councillor Strong. There is a sort of trying to get a meeting timeline together, so we get some agreed dates. Councillor Albo.
Yeah, well, as this was from the 18th of August, has it actually taken place on one Friday already? I'm guessing I wasn't in the town on Friday and I didn't notice.
I believe so, yes. I didn't venture to the town centre on that day, but I will definitely check this Friday.
Councillor Strong.
Point of information, I don't think it would have taken place on the 18th of August because the bank actually closed on the 18th of August, which was last Friday. So hopefully there will be a van on the White Hart car park this Friday.
Lovely. There you go. There's the answer. Okay. Next. So so no other comments on this one. So for members to know the report. So the next item then is the public open session. So do we have any members of the public wishing to speak online? No. So in that case, I propose that we go into the exempt session at the usual words. Everyone happy with that?